What's up, guys? You're watching TCG Fish. Got a modern deck profile for you this week. So I went 11-3 over the weekend in total 2 PPTQs and 1 FNM. So yes, 3 of those 11 wins were from an FNM. If you feel debated by the title of this video, please get into contact with the YouTube police. So in all 3 of these events, I played 4 main deck Bomat Courier. Not a card commonly seen in Modern. I haven't come up with like a super insane brew for it or anything. It's basically just a normal affinity deck with former Bomat Courier and no Vault Scourge. But there are some slightly more advanced deck building ideas going on in the background here, which I think are worth talking about. And additionally, the results over the weekend sort of show, and I feel that this could be like a real contender for maybe being like the next stock, like correct good version of Affinity. So I want to get underway into the deck list. So starting with just the mana first, really standard. So 4 Inkmoth, 4 Blinkmoth, you know, vice versa, whatever I said. 4 Darksteel Citadel, 4 Springleaf, 4 Mox, and 1 Mountain, plus 3 mystery cards. So the only really maybe up for discussion thing here is the Mountain. Obviously you want a basic for Ghost Quarter or Path reasons. So we have Bomat Courier is a red thing, and we're also playing other red spells and are only 1 blue spell. So, you know, have a guess at what that might be. But even if you are playing slightly different numbers of blue cards or whatever colored cards, main deck or sideboard, whatever, a really important thing now is that against Path to Exile decks, post board, you're often playing Ghirapur, Ether Grid. And generally those decks sometimes have Stony Silence as well. So having the red source off that is more important than anything else. Of course there are things like, oh, the Mountain doesn't give your opponents Lord of Atlantis, Island Walk or whatever, but I think that's the most important reason. And the last 3 cards here are the 3 Rainbow Lands, and I'm playing Spire of Industry. So my affinity opponent today commented, oh, you're playing the Spire of Industry version, because apparently that was more noteworthy to him than the fact I was playing 4 Bomat Couriers and no Vault Scourges, so whatever. But I really think Spire is better than Glimmervoid. You lose games to your Glimmervoid exploding, and sometimes you also lose games to pinging yourself to death from this. I mean, obviously, when I say pinging yourself to death, I mean like activating this once or twice and then ending up mattering over the course of a game. But you can sort of manage that life loss, or like play around it, or like hope that it doesn't matter. But if you play a Glimmervoid on turn 1 because you don't have any other choice, and your opponent like Nature's Claims your thing, or you know, you played a creature off it, like a Bomat Courier, for example, which you really want to play on turn 1 and start attacking, and it got bolted, and then your Glimmervoid died. You know, you're just in like a really unwinnable situation from that point onwards. I just think this is better than Glimmervoid. If you were trying to be like a really special, edgy meme, you could play like 2 of these and 1 Glimmervoid or something, but I just don't think it's worth it. If you want to get into an argument about this, I'm just not that invested in it. I feel like it just makes so little difference either way. But to me, I'd say this is right for sure. Onto the stock spells now. We have 6 0-drops. Some people play 7. I might talk about that in a minute. 4 plating. This is obviously in no particular order. 4 Arcbound Ravager, 4 Signal Pest, 4 Steel Overseer, and no Vault Scourge. So one thing that might be you might be thinking is, okay, well, why did we cut Vault Scourge for Bomat Courier? Why not something else? So you can't cut 0 drops for curve reasons with Mox and Springleaf Drum. You obviously don't want to cut any of these Plating, Ravager, Steel Overseer for Bomat Courier because the power level of these is just way, way, way higher. And you don't want to cut Signal Pest, I don't think, because it has too much synergy with everything else that you're trying to do compared to Vault Scourge. Like, it helps your Ornithopter's attack for damage. It's good in conjunction with all of the 0 drops on turn 1. It gives you an extra point of damage if you're making like big Ravager pump swing turns. Overall, I think this is better than Vault Scourge if you have to cut one or the other. Yeah, so that's the basic reason. You have to cut 1 drops for it for curve reasons, and then the Vault Scourge is just the worst of the 2 1 drops. And some people play 7 0 drops, like 1 more Memnite. So the way that I always play Affinity, and it works for me, I'm used to like how it feels, it seems to do well, and I don't want to change it, but I know different people have different ideas about this. I play 16 lands, as you've just seen, 6 0 drops, and then 3 drops. So 3 drops I think is okay with 16 lands, like that makes sense to me. And then for the rest of the spells, that's often like up in the air. So we can talk about like these little details, but I just want to mainly talk about Bomat Courier in the video. By the end of the video, you might think, Bomat Courier is quite cool, but actually I'd like to try it in like a slightly different configuration. And yeah, for sure, that would be cool. Go ahead. You know, these little details can be worked out further down the line. So the rest of the spells, 4 Galvanic Blast. So historically, the numbers on this have fluctuated up and down a bit. It was of course really good against Twin, because you needed instant speed ways to blow up Deceive the X-Arch and stuff. And then it was quite good against pod combos as well. And then there was a point where you didn't have to really deal with those anymore, obviously, because they got banned, where it kind of seemed that Thoughtcast was better. And I did play Thoughtcasts at GP Brisbane. But after that event, Death Shadow really took off, and having the reach is important. When I say reach, I don't mean like giant spider reach, like the burn kind of reach. And then also like now Thought-Knot Seers are like kind of everywhere, so that 4 damage is pretty good there too. And the other reason is that when you have these small guys that want to attack, and you get value from attacking and them not dying in combat, you want to have ways to shoot down your opponent's blockers so you can keep attacking. So I like 4 Galvanic Blast right now, and especially in this version of the deck with the Bomat Courier. So on to the 3 drops. Like I said, I got 3 drops. 2 Edge Champion, 1 Master in the PPTQ on Saturday, where I went 4 2-0 wins in a row, ID into top 8, and then lose to Jeskai, sadly. I played 3 Edge Champions and none of this. So a few people play more of this and less of this, at least main deck, right? Because in some matchups this card is great. Like, it's True Name Nemesis. It attacks, they can't block it. It defends, it doesn't die, and can't be targeted by Bolt or a Grudge or Path or anything like that. So fantastic. It's True Name Nemesis. Except in the matchups where True Name Nemesis sucks, right, against combo, where it's a very slow clock and they don't really care about killing it. So not great there. And then also, like, sometimes your opponents play colorless cards, right? Against Affinity, this is just Grey Ogre, which is garbage, and if your opponent has Reality Smasher in the deck, then same deal. So it's acceptable, game 1, but this is just probably better, because even in like the control matchups where they want to like block, or like the mid-range or control matchups where they want to attack and block, this is massive by itself anyway. And against like combo where you're not really interacting, it's massive, so it's a faster clock and it makes all your other guys bigger too. So doubly good in that sense. The reason why you still want to play each champion's main deck, I think, or like how it works out, is that you want to have at least 3 or 4 of these, or, you know, at least 3, probably 4 each champions in your 75, because you need them for the matchups where it's good. And so the more that you play in your sideboard, because you're replacing them with each champion's main, you're replacing them with Master of Ethereum main deck, means that you're cutting into your sideboard slots. So if you don't think you need certain cards for certain matchups, or you know, you think you have the space, you can play more Master's main deck and play more each champions in your side deck. You know, that might be right. Especially in this metagame right now where like Eldrazi is really popular, that could definitely be a defensible call. You know, some people say that in Affinity you shouldn't play too many coloured spells, but for a 3-drop I don't really think that's too much of a consideration. So the other 3-drops I played, on 16 lands I don't really want to play a 4th 3-drop, even though some people play like 2 and 2 or like 3 and 1. You know, you can find all sorts of lists that mix these up. But again, like the video is about Bomat Courier. Let's talk about the Bomat Courier. So here we go, Bomat Courier. So getting into some like sort of basics of Magic here. Imagine that I tell you you're playing an aggressive deck, and that's all I tell you. And then I say you can choose between 2 1-drops. You can either play 4 Raging Goblin or 4 Zephyr Sprite. And then your question will be, okay, well, what's my opponent playing? Is the flying going to matter? Or like, is my opponent going to have Wall of Omens or anything like that? Like, well, I don't know. And then I say, no, I'm not telling you anything else, that's all. And you say, okay, well, maybe my opponent has blockers, or maybe they don't. You know, so I'll go with the one that has haste. Yeah, that's more damage. I'm an aggressive deck, you said, so let's just go with that one, yeah? So you might say that's a bit of an oversimplification, especially because like it contradicts card choices that we've already made, right? Because if DPS was like the holy grail, then we'd be playing the other split of these, where we'd have 4 Memnite and 2 Ornithopter. Of course there's other things that work here, like 2 toughness can be important, but that's, you know, something to think about. But the haste really is quite significant. Like imagine if Ornithopter was a 1-1 and Memnite was a 1-1, but Memnite had haste, then that would be like a real conversation about you know, what's better. Because the haste is just huge. Like if you, not only do you have the like Raging Goblin, am I playing against the Goldfish factor, when you have equipment in your deck, so you have like nothing, like your opponent's killed all your guys, right? They just played like a Damnation or something, and you have like a plating in play. They might say like, oh, well my opponent has nothing, I'm like free to attack with my Snapcaster, or whatever, like things along those lines. Or, you know, like your opponent has like another follow-up kill spell, like a Detention Sphere or something like that. So if you had like a Vault Scourge in that spot, then you just play it and then it would die, you know. Yeah, so, but with the haste guy, you know, there's way more damage. Sorry, I'm getting really rambly, losing control of my thoughts a bit, but that's one thing. And then the other thing is that Signal Pest acts in a very similar way. Because if you have a Signal Pest in play, then suddenly you got like more than 1 damage out of nowhere as well. So just the same deal as with the equipment. So the haste is a really big factor. But you know, I think you might not be convinced, especially with the Memnite Ornithopter argument, right? Like everybody knows you play 4 Ornithopter, you play 2 Memnite, because Ornithopter is better, because it has flying. Like everybody knows this. This is just a fact, and I'm not disagreeing with that. So let's go back to the discussion. So do you want to play Raging Goblin or Zephyr Sprite? And I say, all right, let's make it more complicated. Zephyr Sprite now has lifelink, and you say, all right, well that sounds pretty good, you know. Now, if my opponent's trying to deal damage to me, I'm gaining life. I'm doing a lot better than I was with the Raging Goblin. That could be really important. Raging Goblin's still better if my opponent's just a goldfish, but you know, lifelink could be important. And then I say, well, okay, what if the Raging Goblin was also an Ophidian? And you'd be like, what? 1 mana haste, when it deals damage to your opponent, draw a card? That would be ridiculous. Like, that would be legacy playable like in an instant. That would be insanely strong. And that is really the ceiling on this card, right? That's what it can do. You know, like, do you want to play Zephyr Sprite, or do you want to play Ancestral Vision with Lava Spike stapled onto it? Like, when you put it that way, like, it becomes really clear. And of course, again, like, this is sort of hyperbolic, sort of oversimplified, but it can do this, and sometimes it does do this. And that is a reason to consider playing this over Vault Scourge, I think. It's just such a powerful effect. And when you consider the fact that in some ways the haste is already better than the evasion and the lifelink in many spots, then this starts to look very, very appealing. Now I want to talk about some specific game situations that came up in these tournaments that sort of highlight some of these things that I've pointed out. So, oh no, let's wait. Before we get into that, I just want to talk about like a couple more things. So against Chalice of the Void, in the dark, opponents will play Chalice on 1 because that's just easy and it counters the most stuff. So not good against that compared to Vault Scourge, because Vault Scourge is technically CMC 2 and this is only CMC 1. But if your opponent knows what's up, they know you're playing Affinity, and they know that Ravager and Overseer and Plating and your only way to kill a Chalice, right, Ancient Grudge, all of these things cost 2. So your opponent is going to want to put a Chalice onto if it's like late game, because obviously the other thing to play on against Affinity is 0 because it stops all your early development. So in some ways this is better in that sense, and it's the same argument for engineered explosives, right? Your opponent's always going to want to play EE at 2 because it kills Ravager and Plating and Overseer. And if your Vault Scourge gets swept up in that as collateral, that's really, really bad for you. But if you get to keep Bomat Courier around, that's good. And the other minor thing is this is colorless, so all this doesn't kill it. Really, really minor, but could be relevant in some games. So, yeah, like I was saying, talk about some specific situations that came up. So, against Jeskai Control, it was like turn 5 or so, I think. Turn 4 or 5. So I attack my opponent with 2 guys, and he's currently on 4 life. And he's got all his mana untapped, and I go attack. I don't know if that would work Bomat Couriers. I think at least one of them was, and the other one was maybe like a signal pest or something. It doesn't matter. Anyway, my opponent goes path one of your guys, snap bolt the other guy, and so now I have no more guys. But in response, I Galvanic Blast him for 4, so he's dead. I hope I said he was on 4, because he was. Did I say 5? Anyway. So he was on 4 and he died. But if he was on 5, right, if he was on 1 more life, which he would have been if I hadn't played Bomat Courier and attacked him on turn 1, if I'd played like a Vault Scourge, obviously that's 1 less damage. Yeah? He would have lived. He would have lived at 1 life, like, admittedly, so that's not a big number. He could have easily lost that game anyway. But, yeah, 1 more damage. People have died to fetch lands effectively before. People have died to pain lands effectively before. If you've played enough Magic, I'm sure you've made a comeback on 1 life at some point. You know, this DPS really does add up. Don't underestimate the haste. So that's the first lesson. The second lesson, so, okay, my opponent is playing anything random, I don't know, let's just play the card that's more powerful. So, my opponent is playing Restore Balance, of all things, and it's game 2. So I go turn 1, Thought Sees You, Thoughtcast. So this is post board, where I have some Thoughtcast. And then I go turn 2, Thought Sees You again, so all his Cascade spells are discarded, and then play Bomat Courier. So attack, 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 a few attacks. I'm not dealing too much damage, but he gets down to like a reasonably low life total, like about 8 to 10, you know, around there. Because I slowly add like a couple more dudes. And eventually he goes, alright, party's over, Mardu Charm in my combat step. So he makes 2 1/1 warriors and blocks Bomat Courier and the other guy. So I'm like, yep, sure, fine, crack this. 6 new cards, untap, Mox, Ornithopter, Plating, just one-shot you with whatever I have left. In Modern, people are going to be playing all sorts of random shit. A lot of that shit is going to look the same to a 1/1 flyer or a Raging Goblin, you know? So, play the one that is the Raging Goblin with the more DPS, and that just has this insane, like, powerful effect stapled onto it, you know? So that's the second lesson. And the third thing, so, oh no, like, well, what if my opponent's playing creatures and shit? Ah, they might block. So, my opponent's playing black-white tokens. I go turn 1 Bomat Courier, bang, 1 parcel. He goes, I'm on the play, so he goes, his turn 1, discard spell. Untap, bang, hit you again. 2 counters, or 2 parcels. He goes, Auriok Champion. So, untap, bang, hit you again. 3 parcels. He doesn't want to trade his Auriok Champion for this. Maybe that's wrong, whatever. You know, we can talk about that if you want. So he takes another 1, and I got 3 cards under here. Then he goes Lingering Souls. So if this was a Vault Scourge, it would have done 1 less damage, and as soon as he plays Lingering Souls, it just gets fucking annihilated into oblivion, right? Like, it just doesn't do anything for the rest of the game. He's basically like electrolyzed it with Kicker gating 2 guys, blah blah blah, you know. But it's a Bomat Courier with 3 things under it. I attack, gets a 4th thing under it. He blocks with a Spirit Token, yeah, whatever, cash it in. So, what was this card there in this matchup where it did get blocked? 1 mana, or technically 2 mana. Bolt you Tidings. Like, what the hell? Like, that is just absolutely stupid. So like, if you think every game's just a pipe dream, or like all these theories like can never happen because too many people will just block it or whatever. Obviously I'm giving you like the highlights. So but in a lot of the games where it doesn't really make a difference, then it doesn't make a difference. So whatever. But it seemed to me that there were many more games where the haste plus the stack off all the cards into your hand made a big difference compared to having flying or having lifelink. This card just really seems like the real deal. So that's sort of the end for Bomat Courier. So far I've actually only talked about 57 cards in my main deck, so I just want to quickly get onto the last 3. Here we have 1 Hope of Ghirapur. So, everybody wants to know what this does because my copy is Japanese and apparently nobody knows what it does. So, 1 mana, 1/1 flying, legendary, so that's a reason to only play 1. When it hits the opponent, you can sack it. Your opponent can't play non-creature spells until the end of their next turn. So, we already said that Zephyr Sprite is like a card up for consideration in this deck. So, it looks a bit shit. because it's a Zephyr Sprite, but we already said that Zephyr Sprite is okay, so like let's get past that for starters. And then the effect is additionally quite strong, even though it doesn't come up much. The very, very first time I played it in paper was at GP Brisbane, where I was playing against Bantal Drazi, and I attacked him with like a huge board, and he's dead on board next turn, and he says something like, "Oh my god, please top deck engineered explosives." I was just like, "Oh no, sorry," bang. Like, that does come up quite a fair amount of times. Obviously, a lot of the sweepers are sorcery speed. So Anger of the Gods, Sweltering Suns, Engineered Explosives, Damnation, or Supreme Verdict. All of these things get blocked by Hope of Ghirapur. And the other thing is that in a race against various sorts of combo decks, this is just like a time walk on a 1/1. So like, you attack with this, they can't Scape Shift, they can't Hour of Promise, they can't Pact for a Titan, they can't play Grape Shot. So yeah, so it's just Zephyr Sprite, but sometimes you can sacrifice it and take an extra turn. So a lot of the time it is Zephyr Sprite, don't get me wrong, like this is way, way, way more vanilla than Bomat Courier is. But I think it is good enough. Like, this has nothing to do with Bomat Courier either. Like, you could play 4 Vault Scourge and one of this in your normal Affinity deck if you wanted, and I think that's fine. And the fact that this is colorless, instead of playing like another one of Vault Scourge just because you need another flyer. Oh, that's the other thing. So I only had 6 1-drops. 6 0-drops rather. So this is like sort of curve a filler in that sense. Obviously it doesn't interact the same way with Mox and Drum, but like it's another early card that helps you develop your board state. So that's nice. And the colorless aspect compared to Vault Scourge, like if you thought that, oh well, if you want another 1-drop, just play Vault Scourge, why are you playing all this other silly shit? So the last 2 cards. So when I wanted to add Bomat Courier, I said, okay, well, is there anything in Modern that interacts well with Bomat Courier? And the first thought that I came up with was, okay, Infiltration Lens. So this is a 1-mana equipment, 1 to equip. Whenever equipped creature becomes blocked, you draw 2. So that's good with Bomat Courier, right? Because your opponent wants to block your courier. Because every time they don't block it, it gets a card under it and you're getting like incremental value. But then I realized that this is a terrible idea because every other creature in your deck has evasion, so it's really, really bad on like a Signal Pest that they can't block anyway, or an Edge Champion that they can't block anyway. Like, this is just such a huge non-bo. And we've already said that, like, well, what if your opponent's playing like Restore Balance, or like any random modern shit that people play, and like they're just not going to be interested in blocking your stuff anyway. Then you just put a blank in your deck for no reason, you know? So again, it's bad for both of those reasons. So but like the curve feels nice when you go like Bomat Courier, Infiltration Lens, attack. So is there like any other similar sort of thing like that we could maybe play? And the answer is actually yes. So the last 2 cards are 2 copies of Ghostfire Blade. This is like really not played in Affinity at all, even though it looks like it quite could be. And I tried it when it first came out and I did not like it. So what this does is a 1-mana equipped creature gets +2/+2 and 3 to equip, so that's really bad. But it only costs 1 to equip if the equipped target creature is colorless. So so it's in this deck it's just Bone Splitter that also like comes with ass implants. So one of the reasons why I hated it in the old version of Affinity, or like the Vault Scourge version, is that the nice curve with this Ghostfire Blade is you go turn 1 land, 1-drop attack, or not attack if it's like a Signal Pest or whatever, and then you go turn 2 land, play this, equip, attack, you know, because it's like a nice aggressive start. The problem was that this obviously doesn't work with Vault Scourge, because this only gets discounted when you're targeting colorless creatures and Vault Scourge is black, right? If you're trying to spam try hard in the chat right now, sorry, you're on the wrong website. But apart from the Vault Scourge, like, this is quite good with every other card in your deck, right? It's really good with each champion. Obviously, this is like way more ghetto than putting a Sword of Fire and Ice on a True Name, but it's still really, really strong. Like a 4 damage a turn that can't be interacted with. It's still good with Signal Pierce, obviously, all these things that can't be blocked, including Inkmoth and every other card in the deck. So the fact that you had like a 1-drop that was like a huge non-bo with this, you've replaced it with a card that works extremely well with this. Like pumping its toughness, letting it attack into 2/2s and 2/3s, and like trade with 3/3s even, you know, like it's safely attacking into like more tokens your opponent can have, any snapcasters, you know, all those creature matchups. There's not much removal that it protects it from, I guess, like maybe Electrolyze. But, you know, without Vault Scourge, I found that this card is actually really, really strong. So, I was pretty happy with this main deck configuration. I'm not going to talk about the sideboard because there's nothing interesting there, no new technology or anything, and it's all quite meta dependent anyway. So yeah, I'd definitely say give Bomat Courier a try, see if it impresses you. If it does or if it doesn't, let me know. Maybe Ghostfire Blade is wrong, maybe the 3-drops should be something else. Maybe you want like Vault Scourge and this, you know, like is that the right mana curve? Is there something that you can do there instead? Yeah, just try it out. But I was really, really, really impressed with this card over the weekend. And I'm definitely going to be bringing it to more events in the future, assuming that I can continue to play Affinity, which I almost certainly will because I don't own any other Modern deck. So there you go. This is TCG Fish, signing out.